3, 2, 1. In 2018, we made a video outlining how TLDR makes money. We've made 78 TLDR videos on a variety of topics. Okay, it's mainly Brexit, but there's been some variety. Since then, we've made over 2,000 more videos across 7 channels, and transformed from one guy in his flat to a whole team of full-time staff. So it's reasonable to ask once again, how does TLDR make money? As was true in 2018 as well, a big chunk of our revenue comes from the adverts you watch on YouTube. Those are the programmatic pre-roll and mid-roll ads which YouTube puts in our videos and that you sit through. Unless of course you have YouTube Premium, Nebula, or, and I don't even want to say it, use an ad blocker. Regardless, across all of the channels in the last year, we've made about £370,000 from YouTube ads, with the largest chunk of that money coming from TLDR EU. With that being said, it's worth noting that the amount of money we earn per view varies by channel. The exact maths is a little bit complicated, but essentially every time you watch a YouTube video, a tiny auction takes place, with advertisers bidding for eyeballs. The amount they're willing to pay in that auction depends on a number of factors. But for us, the most important are location and topic. When it comes to location, viewers from certain countries are worth more than others, with Americans being valued among the highest, due in part to their relatively high spending power. Now, the audience makeup of different TLDR channels varies, with channels like TLDR Business having a higher average proportion of those valuable American viewers. But that's not the only advantage that TLDR Business has either, because the content of the video matters too, with some advertisers shying away from hard news and politics, preferring to be associated with more advertiser-friendly content, which is fair enough. It's their brand and their marketing budget at the end of the day. As such, channels like TLDR Business are just more attractive to them than ones like TLDR EU, with EU covering weighty and important topics like conflicts, geopolitics, and the power struggles that go on around Europe, while Business covers the streaming wars, the downfall of CNN, and my personal beef with M&M World. The point is that with these things taken into account, different TLDR channels have vastly different RPMs. Now, obviously, that doesn't impact our business decisions all that fundamentally. The vast majority of our videos are still serious, difficult topics which advertisers don't love, and that's not going to change. We obviously really believe in the reporting we do, and we think it's important that we cover these topics, so we do it even though it might not make the most money. However, market forces like this do encourage us to consider other avenues which might be more profitable per view than the main news channels, things like TLDR Business. It's still kind of important, it's still factual, and it's still TLDR, well, maybe excluding the M&M World video, but they do also have the potential to generate higher profits, which can then be pushed towards projects which aren't as profitable. So that's YouTube, but what if you aren't watching this video on YouTube, but instead you're on Nebula? If you don't know, Nebula is a streaming service that we created alongside a bunch of our other creative friends, including Wendover Productions, who recently put together an interesting documentary about how Nebula got to where it is today, and that's linked in the description. Anyway, the economics of Nebula work quite differently to YouTube, as Nebula is funded by subscribers and not advertisers, and as such, contentious and political videos don't necessarily earn less. Instead, each month, a proportion of the profits are distributed to creators based on the amount of watch time their videos received on Nebula, as well as us getting a portion of the revenue from any user who signs up using our links. This obviously gives us more journalistic freedom, because on Nebula, all of our content is valued based on how much you watch it, and not how brand safe it's determined to be. It also means that we earn more per view from Nebula than we do on YouTube, which is great news for us and everyone else who posts on Nebula. Obviously, with everything combined, we do still earn less from Nebula streams than we do from YouTube. But given the smaller scale of our audience on the platform, it does still make up a lot more per user than YouTube does. Now, if you watch TLDR on Nebula, then you not only skip over the ads that YouTube put in our videos, but you also don't see our sponsored segments, where we talk about superb services like Brilliant, NordVPN, Ground News, or as I mentioned earlier, Nebula. Now, the way that these sponsored segments work is that companies pay to sponsor a week's worth of TLDR content all in one go, paying a flat fee to sponsor everything we release in a 7-day window. Now, because of the news cycle, and because we do these deals with companies in advance, when companies sign up to sponsor TLDR videos, they have essentially no idea which topics we'll be covering, or even which channels those videos are set to appear on. They do get the ability to feedback on the sponsored segment of the video itself, which is prepared in advance, but beyond that, they don't get any oversight over our journalism. And this is a somewhat unusual and bespoke setup, which we genuinely appreciate our sponsors being so cool with, because it means that we can make videos whenever we want, about whatever we want, and we don't need to get approval from anyone else to make the videos we think are important. All in all though, these sponsors represent a large chunk of our overall revenue, and genuinely do make the whole project possible. Together, these revenue sources make up the majority of the money we earn each year, but there are a few smaller things that are worth noting. Patreon and donations do still make up a fragment of the money we receive, but unlike back in 2018 when we first made this video, Patreon isn't something we actively engage with anymore. But some generous viewers do still donate through the platform. Merchandise is another bit of an on and off thing for us, but when we do push merch, it does generate a not insignificant amount of revenue. Finally, Google also sometimes pay us for the things we do off-platform too. Things like giving talks, attending events, and running sessions for smaller creators, including one I ran with the European Journalism Centre and the brilliant Marvin Neumann earlier this year, where I got to mentor a bunch of up-and-coming video journalists. This is actually a pretty great arrangement to have with YouTube, allowing us to access spaces that we wouldn't normally be granted, as well as allowing us to share what we're doing at TLDR, and hopefully inspiring other creators and newsrooms. And that's essentially everything. That might sound like a fair bit of money depending on your perspective, but with the costs associated with hiring a whole team at a fair wage, renting office space in London, taxes, etc., it quickly slips away. Now, we're still a profitable business. In fact, we're hiring new people right now, but this isn't some huge money-making enterprise. I'm still a relatively normal guy who rents his home. And that's in part because the key thing you won't notice on this list is any money from outside sources, venture capital revenue, or wealthy donors. We still own 100% of TLDR and have never taken any money from anyone besides the sources listed in this video. I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with seeking investment, but we do think that running it on our own and ensuring TLDR is controlled by us is the best way to prevent the kind of bias and interference you might see from mainstream outlets. It's obviously more difficult this way, but I hope that you agree that this extra effort is worth it in order to maintain our independence and prevent us from becoming beholden to any individual, group, or interest. And if you want to help us stay independent, then you might consider picking up a copy of Too Long. Too Long is our one-off, professionally printed newspaper, printed on real newsprint at actual tabloid size. That's something a bit like this. It's 28 pages and features a whole load of articles and pieces about the year that we've been living through, as well as some predictions about what you should keep an eye on as we hurtle towards 2024. And the good news is that unlike newspapers like this one, it's not just full of ads. It's actually got some real reporting in it, written exclusively for the newspaper by our team and a select group of your favorite creators. We're also working really hard on the design of the newspaper. So it's not only going to look like a newspaper, it's also going to be classically TLDR, featuring beautiful images and illustrations just for Too Long. It's not just about the content either. Making this many videos a year and competing with mainstream outlets is expensive, especially when you're not towing a political party's line in return for money, don't have shady billionaire owners, or compromised sources of funding. Allegedly. I'm not saying that any of the major outlets do this, allegedly. What I am saying though is that it costs a lot to keep TLDR running. So if you've enjoyed our videos over the last year and want an exclusive and maybe silly collector's item, then you can grab a copy of Too Long to show everyone quite how smart and informed you are. We're also commissioning a graphic designer to work on the front page, so it ought to be stunning and worthy of proud display. Now, I can't actually show you the finished product just yet because but it's not finished. With the year not yet concluded, we have started writing some of the pieces, but we don't get too ahead of ourselves. And the print run is only happening at the end of November anyway, just in time for Christmas deliveries. If you have a TLDR fan in your life, you might appreciate a copy. Despite not being ready to show you just yet, it'll be super useful to know how many copies we need to get printed. So we're running a limited time pre-sale, which will be available for the next 2 weeks. We will be selling them again later in the year, but if you want to be guaranteed a copy, then now is your time to order. And it also saves us the headache of guessing how many copies we need to get printed, so we'd really appreciate it. Also, as an exclusive bonus for this pre-sale, if you pick up the editor's package, you'll not only get the newspaper, but you'll also get access to our fortnightly video podcast, The Bullpen, where we discuss the writing of the paper and let you vote for the topics you want to see covered inside. Plus, as an editor, you'll get your name printed in the finished edition as a special thank you. Anyway, you can place your pre-order now for $7.99 or $17.99, a price which not only covers the surprisingly expensive cost of writing, designing, and professionally printing a paper like this, but also helps to fund new, free content as we head into 2024. So enjoy our recap of the year, support the channel, and get yourself a newspaper from a YouTube channel, yes, that is a bit weird, by clicking the link in the description. Thanks for your support and for continuing to watch TLDR. As always, it's really appreciated.